Where is he? Where's Deshaun Washington? The shout of a white officer echoed through Westmont High's hallway, startling students on their way to class. Lockers slammed. Phones came out. Inside room to see, Miss Ayanna Cole stood on the Freedom Riders. The words resistance through intellect still fresh on the board. 2 officers stormed in. Ayanna stepped between them and her students. What's going on? This is a truancy pickup, one officer barked. Washington is violating juvenile court orders. He's not here, Ayanna replied calmly. And you can't barge in without a warrant. He's hiding, the other snapped, pushing past her. You can wait for an administrator, Ayanna insisted. You're interfering, the mustached one growled, reaching for her arm. Don't touch me, she warned. The taller cop grabbed her wrist. She pulled back. He shoved her into the board. Gasps. Phones up. Blood from her lip. You're under arrest, he snapped, wrenching her arms. Students screamed. Ayanna, defiant, said, You're making a big mistake. Dragged from the room, Ayanna's exit was caught on every phone. The video went viral within hours. #ProtectMissCole trending nationwide. That night, Ayanna sat silently with an ice pack while her sister Isla scrolled through the chaos. They're calling you aggressive, Isla whispered. Her mother, Alma Cole, a retired civil rights attorney, paced behind her. They suspended you. Without pay, Ayanna replied. Then we fight, Alma said. They assaulted you on school property while protecting your students. Later, Principal Harris arrived at their door, sweating. I shouldn't be here, he said, handing Ayanna a folder. Inside were security stills Deshaun entering the school, then leaving 15 minutes later. Nowhere near room to see. They lied, Ayanna whispered. They didn't go through me, Harris admitted. Claimed they had a tip. I was in a meeting, and you're just letting this happen, Alma demanded. They told me to stay quiet, he said, turning to leave. Ayanna's eyes were steady. Then we won't. Across town, Lieutenant Frank Geller watched the viral video in silence. Find out who leaked that, he ordered, and shut them up. At home, Elijah Reed, one of Ayanna's students, launched justiceformscole.org, compiling every video and news clip. Outside the school, protests had already begun. Ayanna stood on her porch watching the swelling crowd. She wasn't just a teacher now, she was the story. By sunrise, she sat in her mother's law office. I want to sue, Ayanna said. You're not just suing the school, Alma replied. You're going after the city, the officers, the department. This is systemic. Ayanna hesitated. They'll label me the angry black woman. Alma didn't blink. Good. Let them be afraid of angry black women. This time, we drag them into court. Elsewhere, Sergeant Brianna Jensen of Internal Affairs had already seen the video 3 times. She recognized the officers, Denton and Marlowe, both known for their aggressive tactics. The footage made her stomach twist. She called someone she hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Ron, she said, your sister needs backup. Ronald Cole, Ayanna's brother, a federal prosecutor, watched the footage over dinner. You've got a case, civil rights violations, Title VI more, but it's going to get ugly. They already suspended me, Ayanna replied. We need strategy, not outrage, Alma said. And I'll help build it, Ron added. But you have to lead. You're the witness, the example. Ayanna's jaw tightened. Then let's make it a trench. By the weekend, hundreds gathered at the Fulton County Courthouse. Signs read, I stand with Miss Cole, and teachers deserve protection. On stage, Ayanna's voice rang out. I was assaulted in my classroom, not by a criminal, by those sworn to protect us in front of children. And the worst part, the silence, from the school board, from the mayor, from the system. Cheers erupted. We will not be silent. We are the resistance, and we're just getting started. Inside a downtown office, Councilman Marcus Lang watched the rally. Beside him, Police Chief Damon Brewster muttered, "She's emotional. It'll fade." "She's eloquent," Lang corrected. "And students love her. We'll offer a quiet settlement." Lang shook his head. "Have you seen the new video?" Brewster froze. Lang played an alternate angle, clearly showing Officer Marlowe saying, "Drag her out," before Ayanna was touched. The smirk on his face unmistakable. Brewster paled. "That's not good." "No," Lang agreed, "and it's about to get worse. She's not backing down." At Westmont, teachers sat frozen as the news blared from the TV. "Do you think she?" "Really, Sue?" one asked. "She should," another said. "If it were me, I'd burn the whole thing down." Principal Harris entered, tense. "The district wants official statements by Monday," he said. No one answered, but the silence spoke volumes. Ayana. Cole versus the system. A teacher's stand becomes a movement. "You're being asked to cooperate," the official said. "With who?" Miss Patel asked. "The district attorney's office. They've opened an inquiry." The room fell silent. This was real. That night, students Elijah Reed and Marisol Vega uploaded what they did to Miss Cola, powerful short film combining interviews, student footage, and a message from Elijah. "We don't need permission to demand justice." The video hit 1 million views in 24 hours. Ayanna watched alone in her room, tears of pride streaming down her face. The system hadn't just tried to silence a teacher, it underestimated a generation. And that generation was now speaking louder than ever at the federal courthouse. Ayanna Cole stood at the threshold. The civil rights trial wasn't just a legal battle, it was history in the making. On one side, city lawyers and uniformed officers. On the other, a teacher backed by a movement. Judge Lenora Pratt, a seasoned black woman with a commanding presence, took the bench. Ayanna sat beside her attorney, her mother, Alma Cole. Despite lost body cam footage, discovery unearthed damning evidence, an internal message from Officer Marlowe reading, "Let's show this loudmouth who runs the school." Alma opened the case. "This isn't just about excessive force," she said. "It's about the normalization of it. A black educator wasn't treated as a professional or citizen, but as a problem. And this wasn't spontaneous. It was planned." The defense, a smug city attorney, dismissed it as a misunderstanding. Judge Pratt cut in. "Would you still call it that if the teacher were white?" The room went still. Student testimonies followed. Elijah Reed recalled Ayanna's civics lesson just before. Officers stormed in. She didn't resist. She just told them she had a right to be there. They grabbed her like she was a criminal. "I've never been more afraid," he added, "or more ashamed of my country." Marisol, who filmed the assault, testified next. The defense tried to discredit her using a past shoplifting charge, but Alma shut it down. "Did your phone lie?" she asked. "No. Do you believe justice matters?" "I didn't," Marisol said, voice shaking. "Not until now." Then came the bombshell. Alma received a flash drive from a whistleblower school security video showing Denton and Marlowe in the parking lot, laughing before entering. One line was clear: "Let's give that activist teacher a little lesson of our own." The courtroom watched the footage in stunned silence. Ayanna didn't look. She just clenched her jaw as tears welled up. The defense had no answer. Then Sergeant Brianna Jensen from Internal Affairs took the stand. "I've worked 17 years in this department," she said. "And this wasn't just misconduct. It was premeditated and covered up." She produced a buried email from the police chief. "If Miss Cole continues to disrupt, we'll have to remove her permanently." The subject line read, "Ayanna Cole Containment Strategy." The courtroom erupted. Judge Pratt slammed her gavel. "Order." Alma stood. "This isn't about two rogue officers. This is about an institution that tried to destroy a black woman for teaching civil rights. The irony should burn this system down." News broke fast. Headlines exploded. Leaked footage reveals retaliation against black teacher police chiefs. Email suggests premeditated assault. Students walk out in support of Miss Collivan. City council members began calling for resignations. Later that night, Ayanna turned to her mother. "I'm not scared anymore." "Good," Alma replied, "because this isn't just your case. It's a movement now." But the next morning brought more. An anonymous email to Alma's phone. Subject line, "You missed one." Attached was a 30-second clip of Police Chief Brewster and the mayor. Brewster said, "No jury in Georgia's convicting two good cops over." A loud black woman, Ayanna watched silently, then said, "They're not just underestimating me. They're underestimating all of us." Outside the courthouse, protesters gathered in the thousands. Some held signs with Ayanna's face. One read, "She taught us the Constitution." They tried to silence her. Inside, Judge Pratt moved swiftly. The leaked clip had been authenticated. "This court will not tolerate orchestrated deception," she declared. "And I want answers." The system had finally been forced to listen. But Ayanna's fight wasn't just for her. It was for every student, every teacher, every voice that had ever been dismissed. And now, that voice was undeniable. Just after dawn, Aaliyah Bryant pulled into McMillan High's parking lot. Her wrists ached, bruises darkening, but her resolve held firm. She had promised herself she'd return walk through the front doors. They had dragged her out of and show she wasn't broken as she climbed the steps. She noticed students lining the sidewalk, phones out, watching silently. Then came a clap, then another. Soon, the whole crowd erupted in applause and cheers. "We got your back, Miss Bryant," a girl shouted. Aaliyah's breath hitched. She hadn't expected this. Behind her, a local news crew captured everything. Within minutes, the footage was trending. Teacher assaulted by police, returns to standing ovation. Students defy silence. Inside the school, Principal Farrow watched from his office, cursing under his breath. His quiet plan to keep Aaliyah on leave was collapsing. "She's got the public," he muttered. "Damn it." But it wasn't just public support. In D.C., federal prosecutor Monique Sharp was already reviewing the case. That morning, she received new phone footage hidden under a student's desks, showing the officers laughing and using racial slurs during the arrest. "I want them in my courtroom," Sharp told her aide. Now, back in Atlanta, Aaliyah entered her classroom, empty, quiet. She ran her fingers across the desk, where her nails had scraped the wood during the assault. She sat down and whispered, "They thought they ended me here." Then her phone buzzed her daughter Amari, video calling. "Hey, baby." Mari's voice was urgent. "Mom, you need to come outside. They're arresting one of the cops. Right now." Aaliyah froze, then bolted for the door. Outside, just down the block, a crowd had gathered around an unmarked police vehicle. One of the officers who had attacked her Marlowe was being handcuffed by internal affairs agents. The crowd roared. Cameras flashed. The fall of the ones who had tried to crush her had begun. Back in the courtroom that same day, subpoenas were issued for Police Chief Brewster and Mayor The atmosphere was electric. Alma Cole whispered to her daughter, "They played dirty. Now we show them what clean power looks like." Just as prosecutors prepared to show whistleblower footage, a man in a worn gray suit entered quietly and sat in the back row. Aaliyah recognized him immediately. "Is that?" she whispered. Alma froze. Jason Hale. Once a top federal prosecutor, Jason had vanished after a controversial police brutality case years ago. During recess, he approached them privately. "I've got files," he said. "Not just on the officers, but on Brewster, Taggart, the entire machine. They used me to bury a case like yours in 2021. I kept the receipts." He handed Alma a flash drive. "You want truth? It's all here, in court, where it belongs." Back inside, Alma introduced the evidence. The courtroom tensed. "These are internal memos from a former federal prosecutor," she said, documenting 5 years of misconduct, ignored complaints, buried reports, systemic targeting. The city's attorneys objected, but Judge Pratt dismissed them. This court won't protect silence. The flash drive revealed damning patterns. Teachers, like Aaliyah, previously targeted, falsely accused, and violently removed. Each case swept under the rug, until now. Outside the courthouse, Aaliyah heard her name. It was Elijah, her student, speaking to a reporter. She didn't just teach us history, he said. She lived it. They hurt her because she made us strong, but now she's stronger. Now we are. The crowd fell quiet. Even reporters paused. She's everywhere now. In our voices, our protests, our dreams. Aaliyah felt her eyes well up. This wasn't just her trial anymore. It was everyone's. Then a black SUV pulled up. Out stepped Chief Brewster, flanked by lawyers. He moved like a man headed toward collapse. As he passed Aaliyah, their eyes met. No smugness, no power, just panic. That night, Alma received a new anonymous message, security footage from inside the mayor's office. Mayor Taggart pacing, fuming. She should have kept her head down. Now I've got a damn teacher threatening my re-election. I want her discredited. I don't care how. Alma froze. This isn't just excessive force anymore, she said. It's conspiracy. Civil rights, sabotage. Jason Hale nodded from the couch. File that clip, and Doge has to act. Aaliyah looked out at the night. Protesters were still gathered, chanting her name. Her students stood tall. The truth was on their side. Let them come, she said. We're ready. And this time, the system was the one under siege. Aaliyah Bryant, the teacher who fought back Officer Devil, and the one who slammed Aaliyah Bryant into her whiteboard, was now the one in handcuffs. Students filmed as he was pushed into a police car, chanting the same words they once used for George Floyd. Only now, they were chanting for their teacher. The video exploded online. Protesters returned. Parents who had been silent now marched beside their children. But 2 days later, a twist. The school district released a statement defending the officers, claiming their actions followed protocol. That night, at a packed town hall, Aaliyah took the podium. Her voice was low but steady. If dragging a black educator out of her classroom is protocol, she said, then the problem isn't just the officers. It's the system that wrote those rules. The crowd erupted. In the back, Federal Prosecutor Monique Sharp watched quietly. She's not just a victim, she whispered. She's a force. Later, Aaliyah sat in her car with her son, Amari. You okay, Mom? He asked. I'm ready, she replied. This isn't just about me. It's for every black kid who's ever watched someone like me get dragged away for nothing. On Monday morning, the federal courthouse in Atlanta was electric. Protesters lined the steps. Reporters filled the halls. Inside courtroom 8, Aaliyah sat poised in a navy suit, her curls framing her face like a crown. Across the room sat officers Devlin, Marks, and others, clinging to claims of mistaken identity and protocol. But Aaliyah was done with their performance. Monique Sharp addressed the jury. What you're about to see isn't just a video, it's a mirror, and I'm asking you not to look away. Then came the footage. Grainy phone video showing Aaliyah at the whiteboard, teaching, when the classroom door burst open. The chaos, the shove, the sickening crack as her head hit the desk. The silence, then a gasp. The image froze on Aaliyah, zip-tied, bloodied, stunned. One juror covered her mouth. Another looked down. Aaliyah didn't flinch. She'd seen it too. Many times. Truth hurt, but it also empowered. They said she resisted, Monique said quietly. But you just saw her teaching. The defense scrambled. They brought in a school administrator who muttered policy lingo. Officer Marks cited confusion and procedure. Then came a surprise. Kenneth Malone, a soft-spoken janitor in his 60s. I was in the hallway, he said. I saw everything. He described the officers tackling Aaliyah, laughing when she screamed, and treating her like she didn't exist. "And did you report it?" Monique asked. "I did. The school told me I misunderstood what I saw." The courtroom went silent. Recess was called. Outside, Amari ran to his mom. "That was huge. They didn't expect him." Aaliyah nodded. "Truth slips through cracks, even the ones they try to seal." That night, a former student, now a law student at Howard D. Monique screenshots of a staff group chat mocking Aaliyah's arrest. "Finally, someone put her in her place." One text read. Another, "She thought she was invincible." The messages were dated just hours after the incident. The next morning, Monique submitted them as new evidence. The defense fumed, but it was too late. Their cracks had become canyons. Outside the courthouse, hundreds of students held signs. "I learned from Miss Bryant." Inside, Aaliyah moved with quiet power. As she passed the officers, she didn't break stride, but said under her breath, "You messed with the wrong classroom." Then she took the witness stand. The courtroom was hers now. The system might have underestimated her, but the world was watching. And Aaliyah Bryant was just getting started. Aaliyah Bryant didn't just win, she changed everything. The pain was real, but truth was louder now. Monique Sharp turned to the jury. They said, "She resisted. You saw her teaching a grammar lesson." The defense floundered, calling a nervous administrator and Officer Marks, who muttered about protocol. But the tide shifted when Kenneth Malone, a quiet janitor in his 60s, stepped up. "I saw 4 officers tackle a woman for protecting her students," he said. One laughed when she screamed. They looked right through her, like she wasn't human. Gasps rippled across the courtroom. "Did you report this?" Did the school buried it?" "Told me I imagined it." Outside, the energy shifted. Students whispered. Something had broken open. That night, Monique received an email from Brianna Coles, a former student now at Howard Law. Attached were screenshots of staff messages, mocking Aaliyah. Finally, someone put her in her place. She thought she was untouchable. The next morning, the evidence was filed. The defense panicked, but the damage was done. Cracks had turned into canyons. As Aaliyah walked through crowds of students chanting her name, signs read, "I learned from Ms. Bryant." She passed the officers who once dragged her out and muttered under her breath, "You messed with the wrong classroom." Inside, the courtroom held its breath. Judge Ramsey leaned forward as the jury filed in. Aaliyah sat still, Amari holding her hand beneath the table. The foreman stood. "We find in favor of Ms. Aaliyah Bryant on all counts." Gasps. One defense lawyer dropped his pen. Officer Marks turned pale. The judge added, "Punitive damages of $3.2 million and a federal review of police conduct." Aaliyah didn't cry. She stood slowly, nodded at the jury, and breathed. "You did it, Mom," Amari whispered. "No," she said. "We did. You, your classmates. Everyone who refused to stay quiet." Monique approached, smiling. "You're a force, Ms. Bryant. I'm just a teacher who got tired of being quiet." Outside, cheers erupted as Aaliyah and Amari stepped down the courthouse steps. "What's next for you?" a reporter called out. She smiled. "Lesson plans, justice reform, and finally rest." Then Brianna emerged from the crowd. "You once taught me that words have power," she said. "Today, you reminded us truth has more." Aaliyah's voice softened. "You took the lesson and made it greater. That's what teaching is." The fallout was swift. Officer Devlin was fired and charged. Officer Marks resigned under investigation. Principal Harmon was suspended for burying Malone's report. The district rolled out new de-escalation policies and mandatory body cams. The Bryant Act was introduced, requiring independent oversight of all in-school arrests. Back at Booker T. Washington High, a mural of Aaliyah appeared on the front wall, standing at her whiteboard, sunlight behind her, surrounded by students. At the bottom it read, "She taught us to speak. Now we're teaching the world to listen." One quiet Friday, Olia returned to her classroom. The desks were still uneven. The Maya Angelou poster still hung slightly tilted, but the room felt different now. Her name, once reduced to a case file, now echoed through courtrooms, classrooms, and headlines as a symbol of truth, power, and resistance. As she wiped an old lesson from the board, Amari leaned in the doorway. "You ready for your next class?" She smiled. "Always." The bell rang. Students filed in, not just with notebooks, but with a sense of power no system could erase. Olia Bryant's story didn't end in a courtroom. It began in a classroom, and it's still being written by every student who speaks up, by every teacher who refuses to back down, by every parent who knows justice isn't optionally towed. If this story moved you, share it, subscribe, keep the truth alive. Justice speaks. Let's make sure the world hears it. Olia Bryant's victory sends shockwaves through the nation. The courtroom was breathless, its silence taut, like the moment before a storm breaks. Judge Ramsey leaned forward as the jury filed in, their expressions unreadable. Olia Bryant sat still, her son Amari clutching her hand under the table. The jury foreman rose. "We find in favor of the plaintiff, Ms. Olia Bryant, on all counts." A ripple of shock passed through the room. A woman in the back whispered, "Thank God." One of the defense attorneys fumbled his pen. "Officer Marks, BLANCHED. Judge Ramsey continued, "The jury recommends punitive damages, totaling $3.2 million, along with a federal review of police conduct procedures." The gavel came down with finality. Olia rose slowly, composed and resolute. She closed her eyes for a beat, then nodded to the jury, graceful, unshaken. The room exploded with flashbulbs. Amari threw his arms around her. "You did it, Mom. You made history." She gave him a quiet smile. "We did. You, your friends, everyone," who stood up and refused to stay quiet. Prosecutor Monique Sharp approached, beaming. "You're a force, Ms. Bryant." Olia's smile deepened. "I'm just a teacher who stopped whispering." Outside, a crowd waited behind barricades. When Olia and Amari emerged, cheers surged like a wave. Reporters pressed forward. One called out, "What's next for you?" "I've got lessons to finish," Olia said, "and justice reform meetings to attend. But first time going home to breathe." Laughter swept the crowd. Then Brianna Coles stepped forward, the former student, turned law student, who leaked the damning internal messages. "You once told us words have power," she said. "Today, you proved truth has more." Olia's voice caught. "You made that lesson real." That's what every teacher hopes for. In the days that followed, the consequences were swift and decisive. Officer Devlin was terminated and formally charged with excessive force. Officer Marks resigned amid mounting investigations. Principal Harmon was placed on indefinite suspension. For concealing the janitor's report, the school district introduced new de-escalation policies and required body cameras for all school-based officers. Georgia Senator introduced the Bryant Act, calling for independent oversight of all arrests on school property. The ripple wasn't just felt. It roared at Booker T. Washington High. Students returned with their heads held higher. On the east wall, a mural now stretched across brick and cinder block. Olia standing at her whiteboard, haloed in sunlight, students surrounding her like armor. She wasn't just a name anymore. She was a movement. Weeks earlier, in courtroom 8A, she had sat like a statue, upright, unbent, her natural curls forming a crown. Before her sat the officers who had claimed procedure as justification for violence. Prosecutor Monique Sharp had opened the trial with a single, searing line. "What you're about to see isn't just a video, it's a mirror. And I'm asking you, don't look away." And they didn't. They saw A teacher mid-lesson. A door slammed open. A shove. A head striking the board. Blood silence. Then, a student's scream. The video froze on Alia's body, cuffed, bruised, bleeding. Some jurors looked away. Others wiped tears. But Alia never flinched. She had lived through this already. She hadn't come to relive the trauma. She had come to rewrite the ending. And now, she had